Thanks so much for joining us for today's webinar. We hope that the information presented is useful for you. Please consider sharing this resource with other caregivers. Also, please consider making a donation at the end of the presentation so that we can continue to provide these webinars free of charge.
Hello, my name is Alex and I work for the Alzheimer's Association, and I'm pleased to be providing this presentation of Caregiving Basics, Successful Strategies and Interventions. So let's go ahead and get started. So what we're going to talk about is how to better understand Alzheimer's disease in general, to learn more about the common behaviors associated with Alzheimer's and related dementias, and to introduce practical techniques in addressing challenging behaviors, which, by the way, is the #1 types of calls that we do get at the association. Yes, of course, people ask different kinds of questions. However, a lot of the questions are around behaviors. Dad is waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and he's disoriented. What do I do? What do I say when mom asks, when mom wants to wear the same outfit over and over? Those kinds of questions, by far the most common. So let's just talk in general about Alzheimer's disease. It's a type of dementia, and it's a disease of the brain that over time, we believe many years, perhaps even decades, destroys brain cells. It causes problems in memory, thinking, behavior, and we'll talk in a little more detail about what that looks like in a few moments. And it most certainly is not a normal part of aging. So it is not normal for us to age to forget ourselves, to forget the people closest to us, and to forget how to take care of ourselves. That is not a normal part of aging. But don't let me scare anybody. We all forget things on occasion. It's perfectly normal, but those profound changes are definitely not normal. This is a cross-section of brain tissue that you're looking at. Obviously, they're labeled. There's the side with the normal brain, which shows a beautiful, lush, gorgeous brain of an elder who died of something else, something other than a brain abnormality. You can see the outside wrinkly layer is very tight and compact. That's a gorgeous brain, very small ventricles. And then the brain that's labeled Alzheimer's brain, you can clearly see the devastation, the huge cell loss, and the very large ventricles in that brain. That person died of advanced Alzheimer's. And most certainly, that person wasn't able to do much. That person had severe Alzheimer's. All right, so what I'd like to do now, I know it's a little unusual in a webinar, but what I'd like to do is to do a visualization exercise. So if you'll bear with me, if I could get you to sit in a comfortable position, not have anything in your hands, and relax and close your eyes, and try to put yourself in the situation that I'm going to create for you, and then we'll talk about it. So I want you to imagine that it's winter, bad weather, and that you're driving your car. Imagine that it's your least favorite time of the day. The light is very poor. Imagine that you're driving on your least favorite section of the freeway. Lots of merging traffic and lane shifting going on. Now imagine that the road conditions are terrible. They're wet, slippery. Imagine that it's raining hard. Pounds on your windshield, and your windshield wipers are not working very well. Imagine that it's very heavy traffic, very little space between cars. And imagine that because of the traffic, the flow of traffic, you have to be driving much faster than you feel comfortable. Imagine that there's a passenger next to you, and that person is really nervous and talking excitedly. And imagine that the car radio is turned on and is playing rock and roll music that you don't even really like. And you see in your rear view mirror an 18-wheeler about to pass you very closely. Now come on back, open your eyes. You're probably happy to do so if you were able to put yourself in that situation. Now I know I won't be able to hear you, but I'll ask rhetorically the questions. some feeling words. What did you feel? If you were able to be in that situation, how did that feel? Now, I've given this visualization to lots of different audiences over the years, and the typical responses are, well, it was awful. I felt nervous and tense and overwhelmed, very uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do, confused. This is a very common reaction. And what I tell folks is, well, what science tells us is that a lot of the time, this is how our folks can feel, just by virtue of having Alzheimer's disease and diseases like it. That underlying confusion accompanies Alzheimer's disease a lot. So this is just based on the disease, how people can feel. So, all right, let's, using the same scenario, come up with some solutions that we could easily think of, easily think of to make the situation better. Well, people have shared with me, well, turn off that radio. I don't like the music anyway. Sure, turn it off. It's a distraction. Maybe ask the passenger to be quiet while you're focused. That's another easy thing to do. Another thing that we could easily do is get off, take the next exit and get off the freeway. Maybe stop at Starbucks or Denny's or something and just calm down and wait for maybe the storm to pass or just for you to kind of collect yourself. Very common, easy solutions that any of us can think of. Our folks, especially the deeper they are into Alzheimer's, it's very difficult for them to do this, to problem solve, to look at a situation objectively and say, I can do something to make this better. Really hard for our folks. Okay, now let's think about how our bodies respond when we're experiencing pressure or stress in the moment. Most people say things like rapid heartbeat, shallow and rapid breathing, muscle tension, especially in the shoulders, perhaps, maybe in the chest area, that can make a person feel like maybe they're having a heart attack or having some other kind of health crisis. Sweaty palms, stomach upset, all kinds of symptoms, the traditional fight or flight. We know that when we're in a stressful situation, this is why our body's behaving in this particular way. It's behaving exactly as it was designed to protect us. But if we don't realize what's happening, and folks with dementia are less and less in touch with this, you might think that you are dying. Imagine how scary that might feel if your body's responding in a very negative way and you don't know why. All right, so let's think of techniques that you have used over the years that have helped you to calm down in a stressful situation. Everybody has something, their go-to method of calming down. And it's worked for you for years. Some suggestions are deep breathing, great, because that sends a chemical message to the muscles to calm down. Okay, control your breathing, deeper breathing, perhaps positive self-talk. That's what I do. I'm around driving all over the place doing presentations all the time, and traffic and parking and all of that. So more than once I found myself sitting in the car, sitting in traffic saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to be late and I'm the presenter, oh my gosh. So I can feel my body changing, the anxiety is going on. So what I do, what works for me, is I tell myself, Alex is going to be okay. They're not going to stone you if you're 5 minutes late. They're going to appreciate what you have to say. It's going to be just fine. Okay, that works for me. Whatever works for you. Some people say prayer. Other people say they listen to calming music. It doesn't matter. However, our folks are less in touch with the mechanisms, the coping techniques that they have used their entire lives with success. So when you think about it, it's like a perfect storm. We have a person who has a disease. Just by virtue of having this disease, they experience anxiety and confusion. Then their bodies respond, and they don't know what that's about, but it feels awful. They don't know how to change the situation to make it better. They're struggling with trying to figure out a way to cope internally. With all of those dynamics, I'm surprised that our folks don't act out, don't have catastrophic reactions more than they do, quite honestly. Does this give you a greater sense, I hope, of what it might feel like to have this awful condition? I hope so. All right, so what are the changes? The changes that come with Alzheimer's disease and many of the other dementias are as follows. Memory, short-term memory loss. Why? Well, short-term memory loss has to do with the part of the brain that is responsible for new learning and memory. And that's called the hippocampus. And we believe the hippocampus is the first brain structures, or certainly one of the first brain structures that is influenced, negatively impacted by this disease. It's a double structure deep in the brain on either side of the ear. And when it's negatively impacted, it's very hard to learn new information and to recall previously learned information. So if your hippocampus is not working well, you're not going to remember short-term experiences, and this is what we see a lot. Often the first thing that families notice or that people notice in themselves. But there's more. Alzheimer's isn't just about memory. So some of the other categories: language and communication. My ability to express myself or to understand receptive language, or my ability in terms of writing to understand written language or to write. In another presentation that we do, the 10 signs, we show a beautiful video of this very poised African-American woman who has a PhD. And she shares openly that she has challenges writing emails. She says an email that she wrote that took her 5 minutes in the past now takes 20 minutes, and now she has to ask other people to look at it and make sure it's saying what she thinks it says. And you never guess it from looking at this amazing, poised, articulate woman. Executive function. That means judgment, reasoning, my ability to focus, my ability to think in abstract terms, my insight into my strengths and weaknesses, my ability to organize myself. All of those things are kind of lumped under executive function. Think of it as what an executive does, the kinds of things that executives do. That's executive function, cognitive abilities, and those are affected by this disease and other related dementias. Visual, spatial, or perceptual changes. We see changes in sometimes depth perception, especially if the surface changes color. So if there's a carpet and then there's tile, I might have difficulty determining whether it's the same height or higher or lower, or my judging the distance to certain objects. Contrast, my ability to determine contrast as well as different colors. Can you imagine an individual, even in the early stage, that's having these kinds of problems, how it might affect their driving? And we're going to talk more about driving, and we're going to show a short video in just a few minutes. And then, of course, behavioral changes. And normally we're talking about big stuff. We have a tendency to think of personality as fixed, and pretty much it is. However, with conditions like this, we can see big behavior changes, big changes in personality. For instance, if a person is fairly calm and confident, they've got things together, I'm good, and now I'm angry and frustrated a lot. We're not talking about a bad day. We're talking about this is kind of me now. Or maybe I was an easygoing person, nothing really bothered me, and now I'm frightened and nervous and anxious a lot. These are big changes that we look for in our folks. And we think of it as, wow, this is kind of the way this person is now. Again, not just a bad day or even a bad week. We're talking about fundamental changes. All right, so let's talk more about behavior. That's what we're here for. So we, as caregivers, professional or family members, what we found works is we look at the behavior, we look at in a clinical way as much as we can, and look at exactly what's happening. Try to figure out what happened, what caused this, figure out, quickly of course, what we can do to remedy the situation, and then in the future try different ways. So for instance, if an individual is getting anxious because I'm asking them to help me cook dinner, maybe that request is just too big. And so maybe I need to break it down. I need to look at myself and figure out different ways of doing things in my approach, in my plan, to help that individual, because I can change, but they can't. So, and by different approaches, and we'll give lots of examples, different approaches, a lot to do, the changes can be incredibly subtle. They can be things like, instead of me saying, Pauline, come over and help me make dinner, it might be, I'm hungry, let's have dinner now. Pauline, you make this fantastic salad or appetizer. Can you come and make it with me? Or show me? Okay, people who know they're good at something like cooking or whatever it is, they typically enjoy showing others their area of expertise. Let's allow them to do so. Because our folks are losing abilities, and on some level they know that. So let's find opportunities where they can teach and where they can be successful. All right, so behavior. All behavior is a way of communicating something. So Alex acting out, if I have this, isn't just Alex being bad. It's Alex say there's an issue, something's going on, maybe I can't communicate it very well. Maybe there are other factors that you are completely unaware of, and because of the cognitive challenges that I'm experiencing, because of the disease, I'm having trouble communicating my needs, and therefore I'm acting out in ways that are unusual for me and maybe you wouldn't expect. So we are going to, in this presentation, we're going to talk about the following. We're going to talk about confusion a little bit more, repetitive behaviors, asking the same question over and over again. What time are we leaving? Are we going to dinner tonight? What time is that dinner? Over and over and over, which can be very challenging for family members. It usually isn't a problem for the person with dementia because they don't remember that they asked the question 5 times already, or 10 times, or 20 times. But it can be very challenging for caregivers. Agitation and aggression, this is certainly something that we want to look at carefully and address. Hallucinations and delusions, we'll talk about the differences and how to manage them. Suspicion or paranoia, me thinking with my limited reasoning abilities that perhaps Pauline took something of mine as opposed to maybe I misplaced it. Wandering is really common. We're going to talk about that and ways to keep the person safe. Sleeplessness or sleep disturbance is incredibly common with this condition and many others. It gets harder to sleep just by virtue of getting older, and then this condition even makes that much harder. So we're going to talk about sleep hygiene and what we can do to help our person to have deep, restful sleep, and for us to have deep, restful sleep because they're sleeping, and then perhaps other unpredictable types of behaviors. So confusion, we had that visualization exercise. We talked about confusion. Confusion about people, places, and time is incredibly common with this condition. Some go-to kinds of strategies that seem to work a lot of the time. By the way, nothing I say is going to work all the time. It would be so easy if that was true. We'd just make one video and then everyone would be happy, but it just doesn't work like that. But these are go-to kind of responses that commonly work. For instance, if I'm responding to someone who's worked up in a calm way, and I'm acknowledging that there's a problem, and I'm using basic statements, reassuring statements, often that works. And by the way, a lot of the tips that we'll be sharing today work in your regular life with everybody. Okay, if somebody's upset and worked up, a strategy that commonly works is for me to respond in a calm, attentive manner. So to remember that a caring and supportive approach, our folks can sense emotions. Our folks can read us very well. That does not diminish with Alzheimer's disease. Our folks can read facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, the way I stand, the way I move, and they often can mirror that. So if I remain calm, not always, but often, even if a person's starting to get worked up, that person can start to calm down. If I'm worked up, then very likely I'm going to cause that in them, and that's not helpful. One example is a woman I was working with. She had her husband who had dementia going on the bus to the daycare program, which was great. He loved it when he got there, but he was always worked about the going. And she just said, I don't know what to do. Every morning it's a big thing to get him on the bus. He gets all worked up. You know, it's just not pleasant for anybody. I don't know what to do. So I had the flexibility that day to go and observe, because the way she was describing it, I couldn't figure out what was going wrong. Well, seeing is believing. So I went and I saw how nervous she was getting the closer it got to 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock was the expected pickup time. And I'm just watching her and I'm watching him, and she's kind of repeating, instructions and kind of moving around in a kind of a nervous, darting way. And I watched her and I watched him. And at first, when I arrived, he was calm. And more, he started getting anxious and he started getting worked up, feeding off of her behaviors. Okay? Once I saw it, I was able to help. I said, take a breath. It's okay. We're all right. I want in your mind for you to anticipate this being successful. And I don't want you to move around in the fashion that you're moving. Maybe the two of you sit and have tea while you're waiting for the bus. Keep your statements short and simple, and I want you to hear yourself talk. Sound calm, okay? We were able to do that. He got on the bus, no problem. Now, will that work every time? No, but it's a good strategy. Okay, what I like to do now is we're going to talk about driving a little bit. And this is a terrific video from the HBO special, the Alzheimer's Project, yes. And it depicts a woman, a very together person. Someone, if you saw on the street or you had a polite conversation with, you would never guess that she has the problems that you're about to see. Okay, so let's watch.
We'll get in the front seat here.
Oh!
We'll get in the front seat. There we go. So what we want to do is we want to back out and go to our left when you feel like it's safe.
What is reverse? 3 is... No.
So we want to use the reverse, which would be what? Which would indicate reverse on that?
No, that's 1. Maybe 2 is reverse. You're going to have to tell me.
The R stands for reverse.
Yes. Okay.
So,
R is reverse and N is in neutral.
correct.
Okay.
Now, I understand this is a different car for you, so that's why we're warming up in the parking lot here.
Okay. Now, where am I going?
And we'll follow Leland here until I ask you to make a turn. We want to stay in the right lane here. Make this next right turn coming up. And we don't want to make sure we don't go into any oncoming traffic there. We want to stay behind the cars. Can I ask you why you're stopping here? Can I ask you why you did that?
Wasn't
Let's
there a
not
stop
stop
sign?
on the gas. No, there was no stop sign there.
It was some read up there.
So
That stop sign was for another road.
it wasn't for the road that we were traveling on. It was for a different road. Next traffic signal we come to, we'll be making a right turn. It's Big Bend Road. And we'll be making a right turn at this traffic signal. So however you can safely get us, if we have to go past it, we can.
You told me a right turn, didn't you?
A right turn, correct.
And I passed it.
That's okay. We can get us turned around and we'll go back and then we'll make a left turn.
These places have so many closed off places. I guess I can. Residents only. I can't go up there. Dead end. Dog. Oh, shoot. No, I'm trying to decide, should I go up there and turn around? But I guess I'll do it like this. This is the hardest thing I had to do today.
Okay, so what did you notice? Well, you didn't get a good picture of her, unfortunately, but again, she's a beautiful, poised woman, can certainly engage in polite conversation. You'd never guess that she would have the significant challenges that you just saw. So the right and left turns, even though she was in a different car, not understanding how to get into reverse, with an automatic transmission, things that any of us might take for granted, stopping at a stop sign that was pointed in a different way. So you can kind of see how an individual, even an early stage, might be a challenged driver. The part where she went to back up and felt constrained by the seatbelt, so took it off while she's operating the motor vehicle. Poor judgment, poor reasoning, just wasn't able to follow directions. That individual is not a safe driver any longer. So, some other signs. Forgetting how to locate familiar places. So family members say all the time, well, he just goes to the grocery store. Yes, maybe he just goes to the corner grocery store that he's been driving to for 35 years. And what I respond kindly is that he hasn't had Alzheimer's disease for 35 years, and that maybe making that navigating is very difficult now. For instance, let's say a street had a minor modification. Maybe there were some cones out because there was a little flooding on the side. Maybe they had to detour for some reason. That's all it takes for an individual who's used to a very concrete route now to be hopelessly lost. I can tell you many stories where individuals, the family thought they were safe. They thought they were safe. They got in the car, they started driving. There was some change, some deviation of some sort, and they ended up going the wrong way and kept on driving. This is a life-threatening situation, and we need to be very clear about that. I'm sure I'll say this many times in this presentation. I beg families, don't wait. Don't wait until they're in trouble. Don't wait for a life-threatening situation to make the hard choices, make the hard decisions. So if we notice that individuals observing the traffic signs, like the woman with the stop sign well, maybe driving too slow, too fast, bumping into things. One of the family members that I worked with recently, she came to visit Mom in California, and she noticed Mom's car had dents and dings all over it, which was fairly new. And when asked, Mom said either, oh, it's no big deal, these things happen, or, well, I don't know how that happened, someone else must have done it when Mom is the only one using the car. These are clear signs that an individual is starting to be challenged in a car. As you saw in that video, poor lane judgment, right lane, left lane, which way do I turn? And then, of course, confusing the brake and the gas pedals, which can kill. This is one of the things as a professional, as a gerontologist, as a support group leader, as an educator, as a person who counsels families, I talk about this all the time. Please don't wait until something bad happens. Let's work on this driving thing sooner rather than later. So, what are some tips? Figure out a way to get that person around. Let others do the driving, use paratransit. There's, in many communities, I see vans and different vehicles that are marked with, Susie's driving services. I was at Kaiser recently, and I saw a van there with something like that, Susie's driving services, and a bunch of elders got out, and I thought, that is so great that we're really looking at this problem, because what the data suggests is that even people without dementia, just by virtue of aging in place, aging and living in your home environment, that typically you're in your home about 5 to 7 years with being unable to drive. And that isn't even including Alzheimer's disease. And when Alzheimer's comes into play, everything changes. When a person with the disease says, I've been driving for 50 years, I've never had a ticket, I've never had an accident, typically what I say, again gently, is, I think that's great that you've been such a terrific driver all these years, and you haven't had Alzheimer's all these years. And Alzheimer's requires change. And let us help you, you and your family, try to figure out ways to keep you and your family safe. In my early stage group, I've had folks say, when I got in an accident and that was that. You know, fortunately no one was hurt and that was it. I just gave up the keys. Or one family member was still able to reason with a gentleman in my group and say, sweetheart, you're driving okay now, but you have a condition, and if something bad happens, we could lose our house. Now, for some people, that won't work. Some people don't have the reasoning ability, or they'll say, oh, you know, that won't happen. But in that case, he listened, and he surrendered the keys. And when he asked to drive again, she would gently remind him that maybe it's better if I drive. And he was able and willing to do that, but for other people, it can be much, much harder. So solicit the support of others, try to get other family members, you know, paratransit, whatever it is, and figure out a way to get this person around safely. So, because the last thing we want is that person to stop their activities. We want them to go to the senior center. We want them to go to the day program. We want them to visit their friends at the donut shop, or whatever it is. We still want them to do that. We don't want the driving to take those pleasurable and social activities away. Now, for some people, maybe an authority figure. So what we try to do whenever we're trying to do a change that's hard is maybe try to get an outsider to take the brunt of it. So maybe it's not the primary caregiver. Hopefully it's not, because you're living with that person and dealing with them all the time. It's bad if they're pointing at you and saying, you bad person, Eric, you took the car away from me and I'll never forgive you, which is a conversation I had with a family member recently. It's much better if you can say, you know, Dad, I'm sorry, but this is really between you and the DMV, or between you and the state of California. And then try to connect with the emotions. I can't imagine how hard that is, Dad. You look upset. I'm really sorry. And we love you, and we're going to do everything we can to make this work, this really difficult change work. So whether it's the doctor, whether it's the DMV, and this is for any hard change, the pastor, anybody that they respect, a peer of some sort, maybe a cousin or somebody that they've always listened to. When I and all of us talk to folks on the phone, we say, is there an ally? Is there someone that they listen to that they can have that painful conversation about? So it doesn't have to be the primary caregiver taking the brunt of it. Experiment with ways to distract. So for instance, if the person is determined to drive, some ways that have worked are that all they wanted to, in one case, all they wanted to see was the keychain with the car key on the hook. But the family was afraid that at one moment in time, they'll decide that driving is okay, and they'll grab the keys and they'll go drive. So I suggested, well, can you use a key that looks similar but doesn't actually open the car? And they said, well, what if he tries to open it? I said, well, first of all, we don't want him to open it, but if he does try to open it, maybe we can say, wow, that's weird. How did that happen? We'll get that fixed. That's an odd thing. And then go on to something else, something pleasurable. You have my permission, by the way, to use food or anything that's not illegal to go ahead and distract that individual with. If they like to walk, if they like to listen to music, they like to watch the birds, whatever it is, their favorite TV show, does not matter. One person that I worked with loves shoulder massages, and so when they were dealing with a difficult situation, the husband wanted to drive, the wife would just say, oh, you know, we'll go later, and here, sweetheart, you look very tense, and would rub his shoulders, and he'd forget about wanting to drive because he was so happy that he was getting that shoulder massage. By the way, the one time in my adult daycare program, I got one of those handheld shoulder massage thingies and went in and asked permission, of course, and massaged people. I was the most popular person in that place, and they remembered that. It's funny, people with really poor short-term memory can remember pleasurable activities. They remember. The next day I came in and they said, Alex, where's the massage thing? I said, oh, oops. I forgot. And be prepared for drive-related wandering. So if an individual gets in the car, you should be thinking, oh my gosh, there's a full tank of gas. And there are stories, I could tell you many, of individuals who've gotten in the car and driven and driven and driven. because they didn't know what to do or didn't want to ask for help, didn't know how to use the cell phone if they had it on them, were frightened, not making good decisions, and just drove and drove and drove until they ran out of gas. Okay. So more, if the person won't stop driving, and this can be an issue. Some people just say, I can't do this, and surrender it, and others are fiercely independent. I can drive. They're unaware. It's not their fault. They're unaware of their deficits. That's part of this. So maybe we need to control access to the car keys. If a fake key on the chain doesn't do it, maybe we need to be more direct and say, I have the keys, or I gave the keys to our son, or we're just not going to go there, honey. We're just not going to drive the car. Disabling the car, especially if the person lives alone or they have a caregiver who just, for whatever reason, no judgment, isn't able to enforce these kinds of strategies. I've had many a situation where the son would go and, I don't know cars, but do something to the car to make it not start, and that's worked. I've also had very resourceful people with dementia call AAA or call the body shop and get the car working again. But these are just sort of general kind of guidelines and suggestions. Some will work, some won't, but it's good to have a variety of techniques. Keep the car out of sight, out of mind. Now, some people say, well, Dad has to see that car in the garage. He's okay as long as the car is in the garage. Well, if that's working, if it isn't a problem, fine, keep the car in the garage. But if the car in the garage or the driveway is a constant reminder, then maybe it's time to move it to a different location, or perhaps even to sell it. And again, what I ask is, if, for instance, if it's a spouse that's the primary caregiver, I ask one of the kids or someone else to be the bad guy. Is, I gave it to Johnny, or Johnny helped us sell it. Sometimes we have to make hard decisions. Sometimes we need to make hard choices to keep everyone safe. And if we can't keep them off the road, then we need to reach out to the DMV in writing, so that perhaps some people are very law-abiding. Some will just say, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. But others, if they get a letter from the DMV, it says that their driver's license is suspended for some reason, or they have to go in for testing, that authority figure is enough for them to just say, no, it's not worth it. I've heard this many times. It's not worth it. I don't want to take the test. I don't want to deal with it. I'm just going to stop. Okay, so repetition. This is one of the things that drives caregivers crazy. So let's talk about how to address it. So if we can, try to remain calm, respond in a brief way. You don't want to over-explain. We all do this, myself included. We over-explain. Well, Eric, the reason why we're not doing this is da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, how many times can you maintain that? This whole full-blown explanation over and over and over again. Sooner or later, you're going to get tired. So let's just keep it short and sweet. Sometimes I even encourage things like, if the repetitive questions are about something that you don't want them to do, like administer their own medications or drive, you say something very short, like, I'm sorry, I can see that this is hard on you, and stop. But if it's something like, well, when are we going to dinner? First of all, if you have somebody like that who's doing that, you tell them that you're going to have dinner with a friend on Thursday, and today's Monday, and they have trouble with the passage of time and understanding time, which is an abstraction. Time is an abstract, and our folks have trouble with it. So instead of, if you know that this is an issue, instead of telling them on Monday that Thursday we're going to be doing this, maybe don't tell them until you have to get ready, and then beg forgiveness. So what I hear a lot is, oh, Dad will be mad if I tell him. Well, Dad might be mad anyway because he might not remember anyway, so you're probably going to deal with this anyway. So save yourself all the repetitive questions for days and just tell him at the last possible moment, and then beg forgiveness. So Dad says, what do you mean we're going over for dinner? Well, how come I didn't know about this? That's when you say, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. Did that slip my mind? I tell you, I'm really sorry, but let's go ahead. It's going to be way fun. Let's go ahead and get ready. So try to kind of switch it, change the subject a little bit, distract, do the best that you can. Focusing on the emotion, as I've been talking about, sometimes it's better than the repetitive questioning. I can tell you what doesn't work is reminding the person that they've already asked you 5 times. That will never work. They legitimately can't remember. Reminding a person that can't remember that they didn't remember is not helpful and can often cause conflict. I myself do not like to be corrected. I don't know many people who do. I don't enjoy when my teenagers say, "Mom, remember, I told you this already." It's like, just tell me again. Just tell me again. Okay, so I can only imagine what it's like for our folks with dementia for maybe months or years are constantly getting this feedback. Don't you remember? We talked about this. Don't you remember? So instead of that, let's just focus on the emotion behind, like, wow, we're going to have such a good time at that. The dinner's going to be great. We're going to have such a good time and they're making your favorite dish. So let's get ready. Much better than saying, "Dad, come on, I told you already." Now, if a repetitive question is about triggers, we try to figure out what that's about. Is there something in the environment that's creating a trigger? And try to eliminate that trigger if at all possible. So if I see something, I'm trying to think, a good example is food. Okay, if the person perhaps is overeating, leaving food out is a terrific way to get that person asking for more food. And then you're constantly reminding them that they already ate, and that can be aggravating for everybody. So out of sight, out of mind. Once you eat, if that's the issue, remove the food, put it away, and start another activity so they're not constantly asking for food, if that's the issue. So look at the environment, look at what might be triggering the issue, and figure out ways around it. And by the way, I'm going to do a plug for the Alzheimer's Association. Do not be afraid to ask. Go to a support group. You're going to get lots of good tips. Everything I'm sharing with you I learned in support groups and from caregivers. So in a support group, you can ask these questions. He keeps asking for food. What do I say? Ask the people around you who know. Ask the facilitator who's heard the stories. Call us at our 800 number. We can give you other suggestions. Well, maybe instead of saying this, which is not working for you, maybe you can say this. Look for special meaning in the behavior. Maybe the repetitive questions are nervous questions. What time am I being picked up? What time am I being picked up? What time are they coming? What time? Maybe they're feeling anxious and afraid. Maybe they're feeling abandoned. But just a simple reassurance may work beautifully. Saying, "You know what, Pauline? They always come at 2:30. It's all good. They're going to be here really soon." Provide an answer when you can. Now, I'm going to deviate from this just a little bit. I recommend to many families to get a whiteboard or something like it, some means of communication, because our folks really do well with routine and knowing what's going to happen. So if at the daycare center, which I used to run, we used to have a board with what we were doing that day, 10:30 exercise, noon lunch, whatever we were doing in the afternoon. And that way, if a person who wasn't used to the routines yet would ask, "What are we doing now? What's going on now? What are we doing now?" We could gently kind of point towards the board. And our folks can learn. It's harder, but they can. So if you gently point at the board, so in your home, try to put it in a place that's readily accessible, where they can see it easily. A refrigerator, I don't care where. Just some place where they can see it, and put just a few bits of information. If you put a lot on there, it's too confusing, and you'll get the repetitive questions again. And do your best. I know it's not easy sometimes. To stay calm. Sometimes what the need is for repetitive questions, if we can't figure out a way to reduce them, is to get the primary caregiver more time off, more of a break, more respite, and just have somebody else in the environment who's fresh and has the patience and is able to answer the questions over and over, again, if we can't figure out another way. All right, agitation and aggression. This is an issue. This can really break down caregivers very quickly. It's hard on the caregiver and everyone around, certainly including the person with dementia. It does not feel good to be anxious. Everyone who sees this knows if you feel anxious, if you're upset, that is not a good feeling. In my opinion, it's a form of suffering, and if we can alleviate it, I'd like us to try and figure out ways to alleviate that form of suffering. So, how can we do that? Try to figure out what's going on. What is the immediate cause of the aggression or agitation, and figure out ways around it. If an individual, I'll give you an example. There's an individual who's a spouse, husband and wife, and their whole married life, they would go grocery shopping together, come home, he would unload the groceries, and she would unpack them in the kitchen. Now, that was their pattern. And now he has dementia, and his world is getting smaller. His ability to do things are getting smaller, but he knows how to do this. She said one day, she called and said, one day, I got out of the car, went to the back, popped the trunk. Normally what I do is I just walk in the house and let him unload. She says, I used to have a bad back, but now it's better. So I wanted to help. So I went and grabbed a bag of groceries, and he started screaming at me. But I couldn't tell what was the trigger. Why was he so upset? He did not have the language to say, you're taking my job, you're taking my purpose, I can do this, and you're taking this away from me. He did not have the language to say that. So we kind of talked about, what happened, and when she told me the backstory, I said, you deviated from something that is routine, something that he's used to, something that he's comfortable with, and something he knows how to do. Let him do it. And she's like, oh, I didn't realize I made such a terrible mistake. I said, forgive yourself. It wasn't a terrible mistake. I would have done the same thing, but now you know. By the way, caregivers, forgive yourself. You're going to make mistakes. Just like raising children or anything else we do with other people in our lives, we're going to make mistakes. Figure out, be willing to try different things, hopefully listen to our advice, try different techniques. If they fail, okay, we learned. We'll try something else. Let's use the memory loss in our favor. Okay, when I ran the daycare center, we'd powwow at the end of the day and we'd talk. And if something just didn't go right that day, it was like, okay, we learned. We're not doing that again. And fortunately, they probably won't remember how bad we messed up, so we can start fresh the next time we're together. So as I've been saying, focus on the feeling, not the facts. I'm sorry that you're upset. I'm here for you. I love you. We're going to do our best to fix this, to make it better. If you can, do your best to remain calm, because again, you're mirroring them. So if you're calm, very likely they will be calm, or at least have a tendency to calm down. Do your best when the person is agitated or aggressive to limit the distractions, the minutia, the noise, the fuss. If you have grandchildren running around, maybe have them go outside or in a different room, so they're not, all that distraction and energy isn't in the room. Maybe it's too dark or too light. Just look at the environment, look at what's going on, and figure out how can I help this environment to be just a little bit calmer so we can think. Our folks have a lower threshold for stress. So maybe before they were ill, their threshold for stress was really high. But now, simply by virtue of the disease, not their fault, it's lower now. So something that before wouldn't have really bothered them too much, or they could deal with it, now is so much harder. Think back to the visualization exercise we did just a few minutes ago. Before, they could handle it in a variety of ways. They could reason, they could think it out, they could come up with alternatives. Now it's so much harder. So now that individual's stress threshold is lower, and we need to realize and understand that and act accordingly. If a person is agitated, we know at a certain time of day, sundowning we call it, in the afternoon. So we're going to try maybe relaxing music, maybe a nice walk, maybe sitting outside and watching the birds, whatever it is that helps that person calm down. The person I've been working with, when she gets anxious towards the end of the day, but before it gets dark, the family member or the person who's helping the paid aide go outside. She has a lovely garden, and they either pick flowers or prune like the dead heads on the roses, or maybe pick a little weeds or pull off the brown spots. She still knows how to do that, and it's calming. It's good for her. It's calming for her. Figure out what works, write it down if you have to, and rely on that. Figure out ways to modify the environment, as we've already discussed, and always provide reassurance. An example, I worked with a person who got really agitated when he could no longer button his shirt. On some level, he got it, that he could do it, and now he couldn't. He couldn't articulate that, but that's, I felt, what was going on. Really struggling, getting angry. Okay, so I just walked up and gently said, you know what, they just don't make shirts the way they used to. Those buttonholes are probably too small. Oh my gosh, I couldn't do that either. Can I help you? let me help. And he kind of gave me the, okay. And I helped him. And while I'm just talking about other things, let's just shake off the anxiety, the anger, and in a few minutes, you look great in the shirt, by the way. In a few minutes, we're going to go out and have lunch. And I think they're having one of your favorite dishes. So you're just kind of gently reorienting the person and doing something else. All right, so let's talk about hallucinations and delusions. All right, so let me define them quickly. Hallucination is an actual sensory experience. That individual really sees or really hears what's going on. And by the way, an hallucination could be any of our senses, so it can be the sense of touch, it could be taste, smell, anything. So that individual, that part of their brain scans have shown that that part of their brain is active when they're having the hallucination. They really see what they're seeing, what they're reporting to you in that moment. So by telling them, that's not there, I don't see that, that sometimes is not so helpful. Because if I saw something, if I saw a child playing there and I say, Pauline, whose kid is that? And you say, Mom, there's no kid there. Is that helpful? Maybe, maybe not. Just be aware that if I'm pointing and saying there's a child there, very likely I'm having hallucination and I truly see it. However, much more common is a delusion. So family members come in the morning and say, hey, Mom, how are you? How did you sleep well last night? And Mom says, oh, no, someone was breaking into my house. Well, of course, we want to take everything seriously and kind of investigate, but maybe this is a regular story. Mom is maybe scared at night. Maybe she hears noises, maybe the house settling. I mean, very common, the wind, whatever it is. And she perceives that as someone breaking in her house. And that perception grows into a full-blown delusion. So by the morning, she believes it. So it usually doesn't do any good. Again, these are rules of thumb. But it usually doesn't do any good to say, Mom, nobody broke into your house, especially if they say something like, and they took my tea set. And you say, Mom, you have a plasma TV, who would come in and, you try to reason. That often is very unsuccessful. They'll say, no, my tea set or my purse or whatever it was. Mom, no one's going to break in your house and do that. That's probably not helpful. So try to avoid that and say something like, God's got to be scary, Mom, thinking that someone's breaking in your house. So why don't we go ahead and look around and make sure that things are buttoned up tight, and maybe we can talk about how to make you feel safer at night. Okay, very gentle. So as I was saying, these symptoms are often a part of this disease, especially delusions. Look again at the environment, see what might be triggering it. If you have a blind that's kind of in the wind, making noises, fix it. Some people get very scared they wake up, they have to go to the bathroom, but the bathroom's not clear. Where is this? And they get worked up. So maybe a night light in the bathroom that doesn't disturb their sleep. I've actually had people do runways with those decorative lights like on the floor so the person could find the way, or the candles, the electric candles that just have a glow, a LED light, and they just kind of strategically place them so Dad or Mom can find the bathroom and use it successfully, which is another common behavior challenge. Whatever works. Don't be afraid to experiment and try new things. Call us, go to a group. We can really help. So sometimes, oddly, if the symptoms are harmless or even pleasant, like, whose adorable dog is that? I've heard this. And, okay, you don't see a dog, but she thinks it's adorable, and she's smiling, and you say, I don't know, but isn't it beautiful, right? Just try to go with it if that works. If that works. If it's people with Lewy body dementia or other types of dementia sometimes can see hallucinations, and they're benign. They don't scare them. So instead of saying, Mom, that's not there, what's wrong with you? It's more like, okay, well, that must be fun to have that dog around. That must be fun. Okay. So I know it feels weird to talk like that. Practice. And if you can't say something like that sincerely, definitely practice in the mirror, because our folks are really good at reading body language and facial expressions and tones of voice. And what your goal is to be kind. If we can't be truthful and be kind in the same conversation, I want you to choose to be kind. And if telling them that the dog is adorable and how nice it is to have the dog right now, and that calms them and it works for them, then I encourage you to say something along those lines. The person with dementia can't control what's happening to them. It's the disease, and we just kind of have to go with it as best as we can. So, suspicious behavior, suspicion and paranoia. So memory loss and confusion can cause this. So if you're being accused of something, you're taking my money. Where are my bank statements? You know that she has her bank statements. Maybe she lost her bank statements. You know that you've explained it to her over and over about the money and how it's handled. But you got to take into account that person has confusion, and that person has short-term memory problems and reasoning challenges and probably a whole bunch of more stuff. So let's just, okay, all right, try not to take offense. It's easy for me as a professional to say that. Oh, don't get upset. But it's harder for a family member. So I give you that, and yet getting upset does no good, so try not to do it. So figure out other ways to respond to the, you're taking my money, where's my money, why can't I, you know, where, again, brainstorm with other family members or us on how to make things work. By the way, in terms of the money, we talk about this a lot. Work with us or work with others about how to protect that individual from themselves. Our folks can be taken advantage of by others, people they know or maybe don't know, maybe even over the phone, people coming to the door, and we need to figure out ways to protect that individual and yet preserve dignity. So try not to argue or convince them otherwise. Mom, all your money is here. If mom doesn't believe all her money is there, convincing her otherwise may not work, may not be successful. You'll find out. Try using the simplest answer possible. You know what, Mom, we don't get paper statements anymore because we thought online was so much easier. But if that's a problem, we'll get paper statements again. No worries. So, and then switch it out. Do something else. Wandering, wow, is this an issue? More than 60% of our individuals will wander and get lost at some point in the disease process. So why do our folks wander? Well, maybe they're looking for something. Maybe they're looking for the bathroom. Maybe they're looking for you. Maybe they're looking, I had one woman who walked outside looking for her medications. Now, none of us would think, outside for your medications? Why would they be outside? But we're working with a person who, through no fault of their own, is dealing with confusion and poor reasoning and judgment abilities. It's not their fault. So we need to kind of think ahead and predict what that person might do and try to meet that need as best as possible. Activity, maybe the person needs to move. Okay, I'm a walker. I love being outside, and if this ever happens to me and I'm able-bodied, you're going to have to contend with me wanting to be outside and figuring out ways to keep me safe. And by the way, if I get outside and walk, especially if there's a little sun, I'm going to sleep a whole lot better, and we'll talk about sleep in just a second. Inform others, neighbors, other family members. You know, Mom's talking about her young children who are 50 now. Mom's talking about picking up her kids from school. That's a trigger. That's something to be thinking about. Mom, in the middle of the day, could decide that school's out and walk down the street to go pick up her kids. We need to be thinking about this. How can we keep Mom safe? What should we tell Mom? An example of the day program that I ran is when women, and this happened a lot, is women would say, oh, I have to pick up my daughter, my son, my kids, right about that time, right, 2:30, 3 o'clock when school was getting out. We'd say, you know what, your family called a little while ago, and they say that your children are fine, and they're enjoying themselves, and they know that you're going to be with them soon, and they want you to have fun with us, which is mostly true. It's always good when you can tell the truth. Mostly true. Your children are fine, true, okay, they're 50, they're fine, but they don't realize that. For us to say, well, your daughter was in 10 minutes ago and she's 50 years old and of course she's fine, that is not helpful if that person truly believes that their children are much younger and they need me. Try to separate a woman from her kids, whoa, watch out, you're in trouble. Don't go there, provide reassuring statements. Your family just called. Well, why didn't you give me the phone? I'm sorry, I didn't think of it. Ugh. And sometimes we would have to call family. I mean, they'd insist. Okay, if that's going to create, you know, calmness, then let's do that. Figure out creative ways to deal with the problem. Do your best to make the home safe. Again, we can help you with that. For instance, the front door. If the front door is the go-to door, there are low-cost, easy tools that you can use. A simple latch at the top of the door, because most people don't look up when they're trying to open the door. Some will, but most people don't. So a simple latch. We always want to think about fire and getting out quickly, so we never want to lock the door and take the key from the inside. But a latch is easy enough. Sometimes even on the bottom. People put latches on the bottom. Sometimes disguising the door, putting drapes over the door or a quilt or something, like at night when the person is most confused and most wanting to leave. They're looking for something maybe that's maybe in the house, but they're looking, and so maybe they're trying to get outside. So disguising the door in some ways. Putting a simple motion sensor that the invisible beam crosses the threshold. That works really well. So you have the receiver and the caregiver's bedroom to go on when that person is struggling with the door and breaking that invisible beam. So, I mean, it's awful for the caregiver, but at least the caregiver can come out, reassure, calm. Maybe all they want is to go to the bathroom, and they're thinking that that's the door to the bathroom. Maybe they're hungry and maybe just need a piece of cheese or some little thing a little tea, something to help calm down and get back to bed. And please, if your individual has this diagnosis and they're able-bodied, they can walk, please sign up for our Medical Alert Safe Return. It's a terrific program. It's low technology. It's simply a bracelet. It's not GPS or anything like that, and it works. What the data suggests is it works 97% of the time. There's a lot of good people out there, a lot of good Samaritans. I myself have personally, just in the course of life, have been the Good Samaritan twice. So the first time, well, actually both times, I looked for a bracelet. One time, the person didn't have a bracelet, and I was faced, being the good and kind person that I am, with taking this person to the police station or the emergency room. Not good places for a person who's already probably upset and scared. However, the second time I saw the bracelet, I asked her if I could see it. That's pretty. Can I see that? Everyone has a cell phone now. I called the 800 number, and the husband was able to respond and be where we were in less than 10 minutes. It's a great system. It works. It says memory impaired. It has a phone number on it. We have information that we gather from you. We ask for 3 caregiver contacts in case somebody can't be reached. We ask for physical description and photograph. So if that person truly is lost, we can provide that information quickly to transportation agencies, to the police, whoever might, search and rescue, whoever might need it to help in getting that person home safely. I wish I had a nickel for every time a family member told me, oh, they're not ready yet. Usually it's the family member who's not ready yet to introduce something like that. And I encourage you, once you have the diagnosis, that's probably maybe the easiest time to introduce new things and to get them to wear the bracelet. The bracelet for the person with dementia is designed to be difficult, if not impossible, to take off with one hand. I tried it. I couldn't get it off. But the caregiver can get a similar bracelet that identifies them as a caregiver. And that way, one of the strategies of introducing it is, here, honey, we're getting older. Here's one for you and one for me. That makes it more agreeable to some people. Also, another quick story, I had a caregiver who had the bracelet. Husband was in the car. She was just going to run in and get quick groceries, which, by the way, I don't recommend, but be that as it may. She ran in to get groceries. She had a stroke. Boom, on the ground, out. Okay, the fire truck, everybody arrived. The husband's in the lot not knowing what's going on. He's still in that car. The emergency people looked at the bracelet, saw that she was a caregiver, and had the wherewithal to look in the lot. And there he was. Now, who knows what would have happened to him if she hadn't had that bracelet on. So I suggest for caregivers and for the folks with dementia to get the bracelets or necklace or whatever you think they might wear. Okay. Let's talk about sleep. Now, sleep changes just by virtue of getting older. Sleep is more and more elusive. It's harder to sleep for longer periods of time and get that deep healing, deep wave sleep. We understand that, and with conditions like Alzheimer's disease, it's even harder. Sleep disruption is very common. Sometimes it gets to the point where day and night are completely reversed, which works okay, I guess, for the person with dementia, even though they can't really go to a day program or do social things if nighttime is day. However, the primary caregiver is usually sleep deprived and exhausted and not able to function optimally, and it's just a bad situation all the way around. So we encourage to address sleep problems early rather than late. If you're starting to notice that the person is having sleep disturbance, kind of maybe look at the sleep hygiene, look at the sleep situation, and maybe make some subtle changes. Small changes can make big differences. Try to figure out why the person is maybe getting up. Are they going to the bathroom a lot? Maybe it's a doctor's appointment. Maybe there's a prostate or other problem. Maybe it's a UTI. Maybe the person is drinking too much at the last part of the day, and we need to start reducing liquids at that time. It might be that simple. A regular schedule, by the way, this is true of all of us, a regular schedule, a predictable time to go to sleep and wake up can often be very helpful. Definitely chat with the doctor, especially if there's sudden changes in any way. If there's sudden changes in sleep, in behaviors, check with the doctor because there might be a medical reason. As a matter of fact, we think of it as, well, that's just the progression of the disease, and it might be, but it also may be a UTI, it may be some upset in the environment, it might be a new medication, it could be lots of things. So let's try to figure out what is going on, and one step to do that is to connect with the doctor. And try to avoid caffeine, stimulants. If you have to have caffeine, make it early in the day. But our folks, well, as we age, caffeine doesn't serve us well. Because it causes sleep disturbance just by virtue of getting older. And our folks on caffeine, it could last all the day and all the night. So just be really sensitive to decaffeinated beverages and other foods that may have caffeine or medications that have caffeine. So safety concerns to think about more globally. What do we think about? Well, how do we keep the home safe? What is it around here that may not be good? Is there things to trip over, fall over? Are there medications that are left out? I had an individual in my early stage group. This is a woman in early stage, pretty high functioning, but she had a bad day. And she was confused. And her husband was out. And she saw the tray of medications, the Monday through Friday thing. Got confused, didn't know what to do, so she took all of her medication, an entire week's worth. They ended up at the hospital. She was out of it and not in a good place for an entire week before she recovered. It was bad. So again, this is another one of those things that myself as a professional, it's easy for me to say, but I implore you, start observing and taking more and more control of the medication sooner rather than later to avoid these kinds of problems. Fortunately, she recovered. Okay, could have been much worse. Think about activities in the home, how to get people to activities. Usually people do really well if they're active, most people. So a social day program is a lovely thing. Maybe they're going to wander a little bit less. Maybe they're going to be anxious a little bit less. Maybe they're going to be frustrated a little bit less if they're in a social environment where everyone responds to them. Everyone knows your name. I ran an adult day program for 6 years. They're great. They're great. Once we get the person acclimated, once they're used to the routine and the new thing, once they're used to it, it usually works terrific. And it's a great way to reduce problems at home. Driving, we talked about driving, figuring out ways earlier rather than later. Let's not wait for an accident. Let's not wait for the person to get lost in their vehicle. Let's be more proactive. Maybe we can start with small changes, maybe not driving at night at first, maybe driving within a certain radius at first. But we ask you sooner rather than later to tighten that up, to start having conversations. We have terrific information on our website. We have a great handbook by Hartford. There's lots of good resources out there on how to talk about this and how to get the person to reduce the risks and to prepare for emergencies. It's another piece. In California, we're always thinking about earthquakes, and other parts of the country, we're thinking about other things, floods, tornadoes, all that stuff. So we have to think about the person with dementia when we're thinking about an emergency plan, because if all heck is breaking loose, maybe that person doesn't have the wherewithal to pick up the phone and call. Maybe they don't have the wherewithal to go to the safety place, the secure place that we talked about, the meeting place that we talked about, ways that we can keep that person as safe as possible in the event of an emergency. All right, so inform the neighbors. Here's some tips. Inform the neighbors and local emergency responders of the person's condition. It's perfectly appropriate to do that. I've had folks contact the local fire department and tell them, my husband has dementia and it's progressed to the point where he may wander or it may be a challenge in an emergency situation. I want you to know that. Do your best to keep your home safe and secure, as we've been talking about. Be aware that the person might wander by foot and by car. Okay, by car they can go very far distances. Prepare in advance for emergencies, having contact phone numbers, having a village, having people around you, adult children, other family members, close friends, people who are going to follow through and be there and ready to help. Lists of physicians. I can't tell you how many times I've been in people's houses and said, well, let's just put together some list of medications. You know, where's your list of medications? Where's your list of docs? And they're pulling pieces of paper from here and there and everywhere. That is not helpful in a stressful situation. So let's do our best to kind of put those things together, and maybe in multiple places. Vial of Life we have around here. You can put that information on the refrigerator. I don't care where it goes, but someplace easy and accessible, and perhaps in multiple places. I have caregivers carry not only their own medications, but their loved ones' medications in their wallets or their cars, things like that. Just to make sure you have everything that you need in the event that you may need it. All right, so 10 quick tips going back to behavior. So remaining flexible, patient, and calm. I can't say that enough. It really goes a long way. Now, sometimes we, as caregivers, as people who interact with people with dementia, are our own worst enemies. We have a certain way of doing things, we have certain expectations, and we want it this way, and if the person with dementia can't do it, there may be a lot of frustration and a lot of pain. So maybe looking at our expectations, are they reasonable? The person has a condition that changes their memory and their thinking skills. Is it reasonable for me to expect this any longer? Maybe not. So we, as caregivers, need to be a little more flexible. So for instance, quick example. I had a person in my Savvy Caregiver class, which is a great class that we do here at the association. And she was saying, my husband likes to take a little nap after breakfast, which is fine. That wasn't the issue. And he lays down on the bed, but he lays on top of the covers and then complains about being cold. And so, you know, then he gets up and moves around and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it shouldn't be like that. He should, you know, cover himself up. I mean, that's what I do. And I said, so maybe now that you know that what's happening currently isn't helpful, maybe since you know this is his pattern, maybe you can turn down the bed for him. Or maybe you can have another blanket right there that he could easily cover himself up with on top of the bed. Or maybe you just know and you go in and cover him up yourself, so you don't have to deal with the agitated behavior because he's cold and pacing around and didn't get enough rest. And she had to think about that. And I said, are you a little resistant to this? She goes, yeah, it's me. I have to think about this. I have to internalize it. I said, okay. It seems like such a small thing, but we're so used to the way we do things, and the people closest to us do things. To us, it seems like nothing, but to that person, she had to really think on it to change her expectations and her behaviors. Think about pain as a trigger. If a person is acting out and can't communicate well, pain, think about that. Toothache. I wasn't feeling good the other day and I was not in a good mood. So, you know, whatever it might be, a cold may be coming on or something you can anticipate. You know that they have back pain. You know if they don't get pain medication on a somewhat regular basis, that pain may be the cause of the challenges that you're seeing. So if we can anticipate and explore pain, I see this a lot in facilities, that a person is calling out for help, acting out, calling. And I ask, is that person is there pain? Do they have a diagnosis that could cause pain? And they say, oh, she's on pain medications. This is a common mistake. And usually I'll try gently to say, well, maybe it's not enough. Or maybe it's the wrong kind of pain medication. Maybe they need another appointment with a doc to explore maybe a different kind of medication or a little bit more is going to help. I'll give a quick example. I had a gentleman who fell and broke his shoulder. I'm sure it was really painful. And the doctor at first, I understand, slow and move up slowly, I get that, prescribed Tylenol. Okay, well, the Tylenol wasn't doing it for him. He was still calling out, he was anxious, I mean, it was bad. And the wife said, well, the doctor prescribed something. And I suggested, you know, can we talk to the doctor again and ask him about prescribing something that may be able to relieve this pain, at least until it heals, until he's not experiencing so much pain, and then we can taper off. Respond again to the emotion that the person is communicating, not to the behavior. I had an individual, her name was Anne, she was very worked up because her daughter was talking about selling her house. Okay, at first I just responded to the analytical, judgment and reasoning part, and I said, so, well, you're a strongly independent individual, I knew that about her, and this is your nest egg, and this is being used to pay for, you know, all of the higher level cognitive stuff. And she liked me, so she listened. And then she went home and had a meltdown, and I heard about it. So the next time she came in, when she said, my daughter's selling my home, I'm so upset, I said, tell me about your home. She needed to grieve. We all, by the way, need to grieve certain losses, and I did not give her the opportunity the first time, but the second time I learned. And I gave her an opportunity to grieve, to talk about that loss, and she did better. I didn't get the angry phone call from the daughter later on that same day. So sometimes just responding to the emotion. I can tell that you're upset. I can tell that you're sad. Are you feeling sad? Sometimes that's all it takes for a person to be heard and understood. Try not to argue or convince a person of something. If they don't believe it, they don't believe it, and we need to figure out another way to address the issue. Use memory aids like that whiteboard when appropriate. Acknowledge requests. Nobody likes to be dismissed. Oh, Pauline's always asking for that. Just ignore her. I could see why a person would get burnt out and maybe behave that way, but it usually is not helpful, and it usually makes things worse. So try your best to acknowledge the need. Yes, Pauline, I hear you. I know you want to go. Can you give me 10 minutes? Okay, it's hard to drum up all that patience, and which is why, again, I recommend for everybody sufficient respite time. Caregivers, God bless you, you need to get out of the environment and feed yourself. Do what's nourishing to you, do what's healing for you, do what's relaxing for you, so you can go back and be patient and be calm with the repetitive questions that you know are common. Look for the reasons. Maybe we can head this off at the pass. Maybe we can figure out what the trigger is or what the reason is and address it so it doesn't happen or doesn't happen with as much intensity in the future. Always, especially if there are sudden changes, consult a doctor, because maybe, again, there's a medical issue behind it, and if we can address the medical issue, the problem, hopefully, will go away. Try not to take the behavior personally. I hate you, you're controlling. I hear that a lot. Number one complaint is, my daughter thinks she's the boss of me. Maybe think about changing your approach. Definitely get support from a support group or other family members. Take care of yourself, get that respite, go on that walk, pet your dog, do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself so you can manage these things in a more effective way. And share your experiences with others, especially in a group where people, these are your peers, they get it. Okay, family members, maybe they don't, especially if they're not seeing it, if they live far away. It's okay to reach out to family, but maybe something more effective and more meaningful is to talk to people, your peers, your people who completely get what you're talking about. So I just want to take a moment and talk about our services because we want you to use them. Our services are free to families, and we want to reach out to you. We want you to connect with us because we can help. We've been doing this for a long time and usually can come up with creative strategies or things that you just haven't thought of. So we have care consultations. What we do is we'll work with you about some of the challenges that are happening. We'll answer your questions about, is this normal for Alzheimer's, or maybe is this something different? We can make suggestions on perhaps more reasonable or more helpful responses. We'll listen to you. We'll document. We'll follow you up if that's something that you think would be helpful to you. We'll stay connected to you. We'll get you connected to education, support groups, whatever it is that you need. Information referral. There's lots of great things out there. There's adult daycares, in-home care. There's services, Meals on Wheels, things out there that you might benefit from, your family situation might benefit from, and we can tell you how to find them. And on our website, we have a terrific search program as well as a lot of terrific information. Again, lots of support groups. You can find them on our website or call us and ask us, and we'll be happy to provide that information to you. Education, we do all kinds of education in the communities, here, on video, online, all kinds of things, and we strongly encourage you to get educated because truly, Alzheimer's disease requires a whole new way of thinking and a whole new way of behaving. You really have to change your worldview if you're going to work effectively and increase quality of life for you and the person with dementia. You have to change because the person cannot. Let us help you with that. And then, of course, safety services, as we've been talking about. So I thank you very much for your kind attention. I super hope this was helpful, and reach out to us. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today for this informative webinar. We'd love to continue providing these webinars free of charge, so please consider making a donation at the link below.